Hey everybody. So yesterday during class, I had a request to do a figure demonstration video. Not sure why I've never done one before. I've done one for bikini. So that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to walk through the different poses for different federations, with the number one thing being the foundation of the poses being the lat spread. And that seems to be the thing that most people struggle with the most. So it takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of mind-muscle connection to be able to really spread the lats, not end up with your traps raised too high, or with the winging, the scapular winging, or the winging of the shoulder blades in the back. So I'll try to give you some references for that so that you can learn a little bit more body awareness and connection with those muscles. So the number one thing with figure posing is that judges are looking for what we call an X frame. So that means the top of your physique should resemble the top part of an X. That's your delts and your lats, your shoulders and your lats. The middle of the X frame is your waist, and then the bottom of your X frame is your quads, hamstrings, glutes, depending on which side we're looking at things from. The judges are also looking for symmetry. That means your top matches your bottom, your front and back, and your side to side. So that means that you have an equal amount of muscle or shape, size, depending on how the judges are looking at you, your physique. So in all federations, figure is composed of quarter turns. So I'm just going to focus on the quarter turns in this video, and I'll do a little bit of stage walk in some other videos to show you some differences in stage walks between federations like the NPC, the OCB, ANBF, things like that. So the most important thing is to check with your federation to see what those guidelines are. So this is really just going to kind of hit the basics. So with your front pose, so that's what we're going to start with here. So with the front pose, you always want to make sure you start with your heels and toes together. One thing I will say is that the lower body is going to be very individual to the person and the physique. There's a lot of different things I do as a coach for the lower body with different clients, depending on their structure. Some clients who have smaller quad shape or more narrow in the hips, we may need to do some different things with the lower body. So again, I'm just going to kind of stick to the basics because the one other really important thing to keep in mind is that not everybody should pose the same. So how I pose my physique, because what looks best on me, may not be how you should pose your physique, because we all have different body structures. So that's where it's kind of important to find a coach who's experienced with a lot of different physiques for posing to find what works best for you. So back to the front pose. So first thing I'm going to do is just kind of go through what the quarter turns look like, and then I'll provide a little bit of step-by-step instruction. All right, so front pose here again. So we're trying to create something that at least appears to be an X frame. So we have the delts are up nice and high. You can see my lats here, and you can see that my heels and toes are together, and that I have a little bit of a quad sweep going on in my lower body to create that X frame. Then we're going to quarter turn to the right. So this pose here is something we might use in an OCB federation. This pose here is something you might see in a federation like the ANBF or the NPC, with the arms straight at the side. Federations like the OCB allow you to stagger your foot. You can have a different hand on your hip, and you can be open and turn towards the judges. Quarter turn around here to the back pose. Again, chest is lifted nice and high. The glutes are out, right? So we call this an anterior pelvic tilt. So you have your hips out versus tucked in here, which would be a posterior pelvic tilt. So we want to push the glutes out to give a nice roundness. Bring the shoulders up, bring the chest up. If you have long hair, you want to sweep that off of your shoulders. Here, the more you're able to really lift your chest, the bigger your back is going to look. So again, here, we're gonna turn into our last quarter turn pose. So again, with an OCB, you can stagger your feet. So you can see a little bit of the back calf. You can also see the front leg. You have your chest open towards the judges, shoulders up nice and high, and you can see I still have lat width, even in my side pose. For the NPC, ABF, other federations where you have to be looking straight forward, arms are at your sides here, and then we quarter turn back around into your front pose here. Now, one thing you may have seen, I do a couple of different ways of transitions. So this kind of becomes a matter of what feels the most comfortable for you. The two basic ways you can transition are as you come out of one pose. So you can step out with a left foot and pivot and bring your feet back together. You could do that going to each side. The key here is to make it a small step. It doesn't need to be a giant step because then one, it might throw you off balance, and two, it just doesn't look as fluid. The other way to do it would be to use your right foot, sort of come up on that right toe here, and you pivot around to the back. So instead of stepping out, I'm stepping up on that right toe, coming back here. You could even use a combination of the two depending on what feels the most comfortable for you. The important thing is that whichever style you use, it looks fluid and you don't look clunky or off balance while you're doing it. There's no right or wrong way there. The other thing with the transitions is you do want to come out of one pose before you go into the next pose. So you don't want to turn while you're still in your front pose, for instance. So you want to flow out of one pose and into the next. As you do your transitions, everything looking nice and fluid here, and then back around to the front, okay? So it's important to kind of come out of one pose before you go into the next pose. Now, for the lat spread, you make sure that I'll come up a little bit closer so you can actually see my upper body a little bit better without seeing the lower body. So the number one thing, like I said earlier, is that being able to spread your lats is going to be critical to being able to show that X frame, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. So remember, we're trying to create something that looks like an X on the upper body. We want to be able to see the lats here, okay? So if you're bringing your shoulders up and you're punching your shoulders back and you can't see any lats there, those are things that you're gonna want to work to correct. So I'll give you a couple of tips. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by bringing the shoulders up towards your ears. Now what you don't wanna do is have your shoulders way up here because then you look like really hunched and that doesn't actually give your lats a really good, nice width to them. So you're gonna bring your shoulders up really just to about shoulder height. I know that sounds silly, but you don't need to bring them all the way up into your ears. You're gonna bring your shoulders up and you're gonna press them forward in an effort to open up the lats, okay? So one frame of reference that I like to give people, so a lot of people start back here, so you notice my elbows are sort of pointed backwards, so to the back of me. If I roll my shoulder forward in the socket and I bring my elbows out to the side, so I say pretend like I have little strings on your elbows and I'm pulling your elbows forward towards me. So instead of here, I'm letting the elbows come out and open to the sides. So that gives me a little more, a little bit more lat width here. Now, what you want to be really careful about is not having elbows pointy out here. As you can see, this isn't doing my lats any favors. So the one mistake I see a lot of people make is going into the lat spread by leading with the elbows, meaning this. So I see a lot of people trying to do a lat spread leading with their elbows. So in this, I'm leading with my elbows. Yeah, you can see my lats, but it certainly isn't doing me any favors to have my elbows pointed way out here. It's taking away from my symmetry and my overall fluidity of my head to my toes. So instead of leading with the elbows here, you're going to everything, so keep the elbows down to the wrists relaxed, and you're gonna lead only with the shoulders and your lats. So I'm gonna bring the shoulders, so you can notice I'm really not doing anything with the lower part of my arm, staying nice and fluid. Once I've made it into this position, my hands are gonna face each other or face my hips here. I get a lot of questions about how far should the arms be from the body. You definitely don't want them way out here. Again, the whole goal is to have your lines of your physique flow from the head to toe. So if you have arms way out here, it's sort of drawing the judge's eyes way out here, but not in a good way. So you want to have, I would say a good rule of thumb is kind of have your hands just far enough to the sides of your hips where you could almost flip your wrists and touch your hips here. That's how you sort of know that you're in a good spot with your hands. Hands should face each other, or hands should face the hips here, okay? So I'm gonna show you the slat spread from the back so that you can see how the physique actually moves. And I tried to set up my mirror here so that you can kind of see front and back as I'm doing it. I suggest getting a mirror. You can buy them cheap at like Walmart or Target for like $5. Get a couple full-length mirrors, set them up in your house somewhere where you can have them angled so that you can really practice the lat part of things. Or even if all you have is a little handheld mirror and just sort of holding that in your vanity area or something to be able to really learn how to pull your lats out. And so I'm going to show you from the back here. I think it'll be easier to show you this way. Okay, so here we're going to turn to the back. I'll come a little closer so hopefully you can see my my upper body a little bit better here. So here's what I'm going to do. So as I said in the front pose, we're going to bring the shoulders. I'm leading with the shoulders. Okay, only shoulders and lats. Pulling up with the shoulders. The arms are hanging loosely. I'm not pulling out here. You can see as soon as I do this, it almost like pinches my back up even more. What I see a lot of people end up with is scapular winging. So as you can see when I do this, you can see my shoulder blade sort of wings in here. And I see that happen with a lot of competitors that haven't really been able to make that connection with activating their lats. And I have some videos and things, I have different exercises that I send to clients to help them work on that scapular winging. Because it's usually due to some imbalances having to do with different aspects of the shoulder and muscles that run down the back. Okay, so once again, and if I'm showing you this from the back and even from the front, I have my hips tilted up and back, so that's that anterior pelvic tilt, and I'm gonna bring the shoulders up here. Now, in the back pose, I would do things just a little bit different, and I would have a client really almost overarch and lift their chest so that the back is pressed towards the judges. So if you think of, if we're talking about a back pose and you're on stage, if you're leaning forward like this, and the judges are looking up at you at an angle, then you're not gonna look as wide because the judges are, so you're kind of leaning forward. So the more you can really open up the chest and press your back towards the judges, the bigger you're gonna look versus here to here. It'll also bring those shoulders back just enough to be able to accentuate the rear delts when you pull your chest up. So it's not pinching your back like this, it's pulling the chest up. So once I have my lats open, my shoulders are up, all I'm gonna do is lift at the chest. So you don't see anything in my back actually changing here, okay? So that is showing you the lat spread from the back view. So I'll do it once again from the front. So again, I have my hips tilted back, and then I bring my shoulders up and forward. So you can see my lats. My hands are just to the sides of my hips. My elbows aren't too bent, just a slight roundness in each elbow, okay? So that is the lat spread in a nutshell. A couple of tips, especially if you're somebody that's really trap dominant, so your traps being here. And I find a lot of clients that I work with are trap dominant because usually how they're not suppressing their traps when they're doing delt exercises like lateral raises. When you're trying to do things that are too heavy and you start initiating the trap versus the delt when you're doing that exercise, it can actually give you a little bit too much of the overactive traps. Plus, of course, people that like sit at their computers all day long, that can make a difference too. So if you're somebody that's really trap dominant, what you may see when you go to get into your pose here is instead of a nice round delt cap, you see giant traps hanging out here. So one of the ways that you can correct that is, it's another mind-muscle connection technique. And I tell people to pretend like you're trying to press your shoulder blades down into pockets. So if I were to show you this again from the back, right? So here, if I was trying to imagine my shoulder blades being pulled into pockets, I would be suppressing those traps by doing that, okay? So instead of bringing my shoulders way up here, I'm gonna press the shoulder blades down into those pockets to help suppress the traps if you're somebody that's a little bit more trap dominant. So that's another little tip. Okay, so putting this together, so we're gonna go back into this front pose. So I have my heels and toes together here. Heels and toes are together. I have my hips tilted back, that anterior pelvic tilt. My chest is up, okay? So one little term I like to use is tits up, ass out, right? So your chest is lifted towards the ceiling, your rib cage is lifted high, and your booty is out here, okay? So we're gonna bring our chest up, hips are out, shoulders come up towards the ears, not in the ears. Keep them level. Elbows are just to the sides, right? So they're not really pointy, but they're not pulled back here. That shoulder is rolled forward in the shoulder socket there, okay? So this is your front pose. When the judges call for you to quarter turn to the right. So we're gonna relax out of the pose that we're in, and eventually this should flow together. You shouldn't actually have to do this in steps like relax your pose, turn and face the back. But I wanna make sure that you know, as you're practicing, it'll start to come together, but I'm gonna walk you through the steps, so it'll feel a little bit more mechanical until you get it to flow better. So we're here, the judges will tell you to quarter turn to the right. So you're gonna relax out of the pose you're in. You're gonna choose your transition. So either step back, step forward, small steps, and then you're going to bring your feet back together. So I'll start with the OCB pose, or any federation that allows you to step forward, change your pose a little bit, look towards the judges. And actually in the MPC, when you're doing your individual stage walk, or when you may be standing on the sides waiting for other people to do their stage walk or waiting for your call outs, this pose is actually really important for you too. The other pose is one that would be used during your quarter turn comparisons, your root comparisons. So this is the pose that everybody should learn regardless of the federation, because we call this sort of the model pose, or the pretty pose, the front facing pose. So you can use this in regardless of the federation, in other times that you're on stage. Okay, so here we're gonna set our feet. So anytime I discuss what is the front part of the physique, I'm talking about what's facing the judges. So in these terms, it's what's facing you, the athlete right now, looking at the video. So the front leg is gonna be slightly staggered with the back. So you can see that the heel of my front leg, which is my left, is going right into the arch of my back leg, which is my right. So my feet are not separated. There's no space between my feet here. We want to keep the flow of the physique top to bottom, okay? Again, the leg positioning might change based on the athlete, so this is just very basic recommendations. So here, you have your feet set first, hips are back, as I said, your abs are pulled in nice and tight, okay? You're gonna do your lat spread from the side. This is just a good way to kind of start to get a feel for it. The same lat spread we did in the front. And then you're gonna open your chest towards the judges, okay? Here, so you notice I'm not just pulling my arm back. That's not a mistake. I see people just wing their arm back here. The goal is to keep that width across the upper body the whole time that you're on stage, regardless of the pose. So I'm gonna open my lats here. I'm gonna turn my chest towards the judges. This arm is going to hang loosely at my side here. And I'm gonna bring the back hand on my hip, or rather my waist. So the hip would be way back here. So in order for the judges to be able to see both shoulders and to really have that nice width across your body, you want to make sure that the hand is actually closer to the belly button, not way back here. You'll have a hard time getting that around. So bring it here. And a lot of people ask me what they should do with their hands on their hip. So I have a couple of different recommendations here. What you don't want to do is put your whole hand on your waist, because that's going to cover some important abs and it's going to be just a little distracting. I also don't necessarily recommend doing a fist. Personal preference, I think it looks a little bit more masculine and I think it's unnecessary. So instead, I usually recommend like just using your thumb and your finger with the other 3 fingers curled in and hitting it on your hip like this. So it's kind of like a fist, but not a full fist here. Or some people like to do like finger and thumb, or 2 fingers right here where the suit is going to run. So the suit's going to kind of run right here on your hip. So either one of these works just fine. But put your hand on your hip. I see people doing this all the time, and it's like they don't want to touch their hip. Again, we're trying to make the physique flow from head to toe. So put the hand on the hip. It's okay to touch yourself here. Okay. So shoulders are open, lats are open, delts are up nice and high. You're not just pulling this arm back. You should be stretching out those lats the same way that you're doing in your front pose, okay? So it's the same lat spread we were doing in the front pose here, okay? In fact, if we were gonna put this together a little bit more, we could go from our front pose here, quarter turn this way. I never even turn my chest away from the judges, and then I just go directly back into my lat spread from there. So if I were to go from here, I keep my chest open towards the judges, and then right into should be the same feeling, but same lat spread we did in the first pose, okay? And then the next pose we're gonna do is the rear pose. So again, we'll relax out of the pose we're in when they tell us to quarter turn. Choose your transition, step out or step back. Feet are together, hips are back, chest is up, shoulders up to open the lats, arms hang loosely at your side, and then you really want to be able to lift that chest so that you're as wide as you can possibly be for the judges, okay? Very similar to the front pose, hands are just to the sides of your hips, maybe a little bit in front. And again, everybody's physique structure is different, so how your body looks with different arm position is going to be very dependent on your physique, okay? But this is the basics. And then we're going to do another quarter turn, we're going to relax. I'm going to do my transition. And again here, so now we're going to mimic what we did on the other side. So I'm going to take my front foot and stick the heel right into the arch of the back foot here. And I'm going to open my chest, I'm going to open my lats, shoulders are up, arm hangs loosely at my side here, and then the back hand goes on my hip. Okay? So again, don't just wing your shoulder back. You should be stretching your lats, you should be opening your lats, the same that you do in that front pose, okay? And then I'm gonna come back to the front, again, feet together, and then into the front lat spread, okay? So that was, I showed you the hand on hip facing front side pose for that one. So this next round, I'll show you for federations that require that straight on pose, where you're not able to turn and look towards the judges. So again, front and back poses don't really change. So here, we're gonna quarter turn. This time, as I come around to the side, my feet are actually going to stay together instead of be staggered. Some federations will let you still go with a little bit of a stagger. Again, you just have to determine from that federation's guidelines here. Now, I still recommend that you start with the lat spread, because you still want to show as much width as you can, even in this side pose. So it's not just, you don't want to just, sort of wing one arm forward. You also want to make sure that you're able to show this back arm. So you don't want to keep it pinned into your side here. You gotta make sure you bring that shoulder out just a little bit. So again, you should be feeling the stretch in your lats. I'm doing my lat spread from the side, and I'm gonna turn my chest. I'm just not gonna put this hand on my back hip, basically, okay? So the other thing that I typically recommend to do, and again, it's gonna depend, your arm placement in this is gonna depend on your physique. But what I like to do, what I like to recommend is the hand falls right here so that you don't accidentally cover your glutes, or if it's too far back here, it may kind of throw your physique off a little bit. So I usually recommend the hand fall right here, and then this back arm comes around so that you can see both shoulders. This hand should fall right in front of your right hand should go right in front of your right thigh. You don't want it way over here. You don't want to look like you're holding a ball or a basket over here, okay? So this arm here, and then you're gonna look straight ahead. A little guidance on that looking straight ahead so that it doesn't look awkward or feel awkward. So you might see somebody is like straining their neck this way. That doesn't look all that appealing, nor does it feel great. So I usually recommend sort of angling your face towards the corner of the stage, from the corner to the room as you're practicing. So no, I'm not turning and looking towards the judges, but I have my face angled just a little bit so I'm not cricking my neck this way. My face is sort of angled towards my chest here, okay? So I'm looking straight ahead, and then I'm gonna quarter turn again. The rear pose again, the same, that doesn't change. Quarter turn, come around, feet together, and again, slight angle to my face. Both, you can see both shoulders here. I'm not covering any important parts of my lower body. This hand is in front of the thigh. The left hand is right in front of the left thigh, not way over here. And then I'm gonna come back around to the front. There. So hopefully that helps give an idea at least of the quarter turns, or what we would call it during the group comparisons. I'll do another quick video on the different stage walks to give you an idea of what type of poses you might use in different figure stage walks, depending on what federation that you're doing, or the different, what we call the different types of stage walks that people do. So hopefully this helps give you a little bit of a demonstration with the figure poses, the couple of different styles. Again, everybody's physique is different. So everybody is going to need to pose different based on their physique. But these are the basics, right? The number one thing, getting the lats out. If you can't get your lat spread, or you're too trappy, or you have scapular winging, then the rest of the pose doesn't matter. Trust me on this. The judges can't judge what they can't see. So you can have the biggest lat spread in the world, but if your scapular winging up and everything's pinched up in your back, then you're not going to be able to see it. If you're not able to get a feeling for this on your own, then obviously try to find a coach, one that has experience in posing different physiques, one that actually has some idea of anatomy. I work a lot with helping to correct muscular imbalances with a lot of clients, and which is what causes a lot of those scapular winging and things like that. So again, those are kind of the important pieces for having a coach help you pose individually versus just in a group class or on this video. But hopefully the video helps. And that's it for today. Have a great day, guys. Thanks.